You're listening to Just Another Solar podcast, bringing you the latest from the solar industry. This episode is proudly sponsored by Catch Power. Are you still wasting time on site trying to make complex systems work? Struggling with export limits, max demand thresholds, EV control, or multi-brand headaches? Catch Control is your answer. A 2-pole wide Aussie-made energy meter that does the thinking for you. Export limiting, load control, battery and EV integration, DNSP compliance, all sorted. For more information, please visit our website, catchpower.com.au.
Welcome back to Just Another Solar podcast with Luke Beattie. That's me, Karl Jensen. G'day, Karl.
Luke, wouldn't be me without the weather report. And in Melbourne, it is freezing. It is absolutely frozen. And that's great for business because people's hot water systems fall over everywhere when it gets cold. So been a massive week.
So it's been pretty warm online. I notice you've been getting into the odd stoush on the solar groups.
Look, at the end of the day, Luke, I don't understand why these people get so precious. It's like, play the game, not the man. And I just throw it straight back at them. It's not okay to make $7,000 out of an hour's work. That's taking the piss. And ultimately, it seems that integrity isn't as common out there in our industry as I thought that it was.
Oh, half a minute in and shots fired. There you go.
Yeah, gets up.
I better introduce Jess MacPherson. G'day, Jess.
G'day, Luke. Is there a thing about swearing within the first few minutes and advertisers and blah, blah, blah? Is that
considering the guest that we have on this episode and
we're not
the
on good
caliber
behavior
of the
today,
guest.
are we?
No. Carl's in the naughty corner already. How have you been?
Yeah, brilliant, mate. Just everyone wants a battery. Everyone and their mum and their dog wants a battery at the moment. So really busy in the best possible way. And it's just making sure that everyone's getting the attention they deserve for their designs. But yeah, it's a good time to be on the solar coaster.
And we've got industry legend Nigel Morris. Hey, Nigel.
Hey, team. I'm just going to put it right out there just from the get-go. My wife just rang me from the bolo down the street and said this is a stupid time to have a podcast because there's pints of rashes for the price of schooners. And she said, you're an idiot. Why are you there, not down here?
You're missing happy hour just for this episode.
Certainly am. Wouldn't miss it for the world with our guests. Well deserved. And there's plenty going on. My week's just been berserk. It's like the Punic War in 218 BC. It's just, Hannibal's coming with the elephants. It's mental. It's everything that's going on.
Start the word counter, Luke.
We're all down to 11 today, aren't we? Jeez,
I think we blew the word count before we press record today. So, Jess, you mentioned all the battery inquiries, all of the talk online, all of the interest is around the battery schemes. Relevant to people in WA, most of the details for the WA battery scheme have now been published. A lot of people have criticised the WA government for reducing the amount. So initially, the WA government committed to $5,000 for Synergy customers, $7,500 for Horizon customers, and now it is being stacked with the federal scheme, and that's exactly what households are going to get, $5,000 and $7,500. But what it means is that instead of 20,000 households and 20,000 rebates, it's going to be around 100,000. So I'm calling that a win, but there's a few people in industry who weren't so happy. But in New South Wales, I don't believe that under the PDRS, all of the scheme details and the stackability have been revealed yet.
WA battery rebate scheme is still the best out of all of them as far as I can tell. Simply that $10,000 interest-free loan is, any way I spin it, worth about 16 cents a kilowatt hour on the cycle cost of the battery. And ultimately, that means that people in WA, they've got a big spread between midday saver rates and peak time rates. That makes a battery more viable. That break on the interest rates on the more money that you need to put one of these things in is just huge. That makes a huge difference to the economic cost of having a battery. And WA's got the best scheme going.
And they've also mandated VPP, which we saw in the Fed scheme. It's VPP compatible, but the WA government has backed it in and said under the battery scheme, it is mandatory VPP, which is either under Synergy or there's another provider, Pleco, approved provider in the metro area, in regional areas, it's with Horizon. So interesting move. What are your thoughts?
My thoughts there, I'm going to jump in again. Sorry, Nigel. 70 cents they're paying. So I've always said that VPPs were crap and they didn't pay enough money. 70 cents, absolutely, that's enough money. So that's covering the cycle cost of the battery. That's covering any opportunity cost or any lost opportunity from using your own battery for your own needs and all the rest of it. 70 cents absolutely is a good number. If it works out at 120, 130 bucks a year, it's 120, 130 bucks a year for jam that they didn't have before. So winner.
Do we know that it's going to stay that way, or is there a lock-in period? I've seen a little bit, but I haven't seen all the details.
Yeah, so today I heard that it's going to be a 2-year lock-in period.
A little bit of surety. It's pretty interesting, isn't it? Because whether it's VPPs or whether it's wholesale trading, I saw a post from someone on my energy efficient home today who'd mapped out the savings that they got last year on a VPP with AGL, I think it was, and then they switched to Amber, and then they mapped that out over the savings that they made, and there was $1,000 a year, right? Which interestingly is what I've heard from Amber being talked about, and certainly the analysis that we've done, we can see the potential is there for someone with a large battery and large solar system and lots of sophisticated control going on. There is money to be made on these things. So whether it's a VPP, whether it's a wholesale trade, whether it's any one of the mechanisms in the market, what is really cool is seeing businesses find ways to find that value and pass it on as a stimulus that just makes the whole rest of the thing a no-brainer.
I reckon it's a bit like, don't know if anyone saw it in the news yesterday, Thermomix got nailed for making false and misleading claims about their product and fined $80,000. So that's a big green flag for the solar industry to start selling 40 kilowatt batteries to little old ladies because the fines aren't very big.
Oh, you're always on this, Carl.
Just
there's plenty of people who need the 40 kilowatt hours, mate. Oh, come on, we gotta
no
give it
one
to the
needs
people
40
who
kilowatt
need
hours.
it. Oh, mate. Look, I guess the reason I bring it up is it reminds me of the Tesla Energy Plan, which was a pretty big part of the home battery scheme in SA.
Thousands went on, right?
It was like $2,000 towards the upfront cost, plus SA Gov was pitching in $6,000. So you got $8,000 towards your battery in the very early days, and the amounts on both fronts scaled down over time, but also the rates from the VPP were very competitive at the start. It had a 2-year lock-in period, and they definitely got way less competitive over time, but people were still locked into the plan. And, I'd say those people were probably still in front with their hardware discounts and things like that. But just to say, I think whenever I hear that it's a lock-in period for a VPP, it does sort of raise the heckles a little bit just to, will those rates stay like that is something I think is pretty important to know.
I think this is a great point, because what it highlights is that when you move from sort of capital rebates and capital discount, you need a bit of incentive just to make the technology affordable, right?
Yeah.
We've got a federal rebate, we've got a state rebate. Okay, great. Off we go. The economics, the capex is not too hard now. But then once you move into the energy world, buying, selling, then it's a dynamic market and it changes. And this is where, I think the value of, whether it's a deal that you can get today or whether it's a deal, the deal will be different in 6 or 12 months. Feed-in tariffs are going to change. VPPs are going to change. We just saw a power price increase in New South Wales that's going to hit me for, like 8 or 10% increase in New South Wales. Big numbers, right? So this is all dynamic. But what's cool is once the CapEx gets down to a certain level where it's just palatable, then get in the market, trade your energy one way or the other, however you prefer, manual, automated, simple, complex, whatever you want, but be ready to change and adjust as these incredibly dynamic market dynamics shift.
Nigel, the Waratah Super Battery is in the 3.5 stage of commissioning, which means it's going to come online any minute. And that's going to completely screw any opportunity for anyone to make any money because it's 700 megawatt hours of storage.
That's not true. We've got a few big batteries here in SA, and we've got
you're right.
the most.
You're right. I made a mistake. It's 700 megawatts with 1,400 megawatt hours of storage. So goodbye.
No, that's not true. We've got a couple of big batteries here in SA, and we have the most volatile pricing in the country.
They're dropping the bucket, Jess. They're nothing. The 1,400 megawatt.
You reckon they're gonna swamp the market, and there'll be no room.
1.4 gigawatt hours of storage. That's a shitload.
When's that coming online?
Any day.
Any day. Where is it? Victoria?
The Waratah Super Battery in New South Wales.
New South Wales.
Nigel, a quick one. The solar pioneers are facing a crisis. Tell us about that.
Yeah, look, the simple version is SEA have launched a campaign. I've been helping them get the message out. I think it's a worthy campaign because there are about 300 legacy accredited solar installers, mostly our pioneers, mostly people who started in the industry some more than 40 years ago, right? Like really, really, really decades ago. And some of them have managed to get away without having an AC electrical contractor's license themselves, but instead partnering or subcontracting to AC electrical contractors for decades, right? It's been safe. It's been reliable. It's been great collaboration. Everyone learns. And those guys have brought a wealth of experience to this industry. There is a rule change happening at the end of this month, which is only like 3 weeks away now, which is just going to exclude them because the rules will say from July 1, if you don't have an AC license, you're out. Now, I understand the intention. The intention is keep things safe, make sure the government's backside is protected. That all makes perfect sense. But the reality is that excluding the 300 highly, highly experienced technical battery people from the industry, plus all their employees, puts their businesses at risk. It stifles the opportunity for us to deliver on this amazing battery rebate program just at the time. I mean, the day that they lose their licenses is the day the rebate kicks off. It's ludicrous. That in itself is just nutso. So, you know, on behalf of SEA, on behalf of all the solar pioneers who are out there, who are trying to survive on those legacy arrangements, give them a bit more time to work through the new regulations. Don't slow the industry down. Don't slow the energy transition down. Help our pioneers to keep doing what they've been doing for 4 decades.
There's been a bit of back kick on some of the posts you've made, Nigel,
There
and
has.
some pretty valid points, I think.
Very valid points.
Yeah, like around, you know, making sure that this isn't allowing people to get away with not being up to date with the standards. There's been some reports that it's maybe letting things slip through the cracks. What exactly is this petition to do? Is it just to delay the date, or is it to allow these people to keep, like, you know, to find some sort of middle ground so that they can get their accreditation, maybe with a bit of extra support or recognition of what they already have?
So fundamentally, they were given this negotiation's been going on for quite a while, more than a year. And the simple fact of the matter is, when the rule change was proposed, they gave them a year. You cannot get your AC electrical license in 1 year. It takes 4 years. So there is no opportunity for these guys and girls to get through the process that is required. So they have been crushed by virtue of the timing.
What's the signature do? What's the proposal of the petition?
So the proposal of the petition is simply to get a sense of the support that there is for these pioneers that are out there. The goal is to go to Minister Bowen and say, Minister Bowen, we really want you to intervene here. We need every set of boots on the ground we can get right now.
Yeah, fair enough.
All right, so moving on to today's guest. Wayne Smith is the Chief Advocacy Officer at the Smart Energy Council. He's spent over a decade in the renewables space, working on everything from policy and strategy to lobbying and government relations. He's advised politicians, worked with top energy companies, and knows the ins and outs of how things get done in Canberra and around the country. Welcome to the podcast, Wayne.
Hey, g'day, Luke. Hey, g'day, all.
I propose a round of applause for Wayne. We haven't done this before. So the battery scheme's got your name all over it, Wayne, and obviously that's billions of dollars for our industry. And big shout out to you, mate. That's awesome. Pleasure
Thanks.
to have you here.
Yeah, thanks, mate. Really appreciate that. And Smart Energy Council put a lot of effort into this. And I really appreciate it. And I think it's going to be a great program. We put a huge amount of effort into the development of that program, just getting that announcement happening and putting a massive amount of work into implementation as well, right up to the 1st of July to make sure it's as good a program as possible. And I reckon it will be. It's going to be a massive success.
Definitely going to be a massive success because the solar industry is on the bare bones of its ass right now. The amount of stock that people are sitting on and the work that people haven't been doing for months now, we're anticipating that good times are just around the corner.
Yeah, I think that's right. It's been a huge challenge, there's no doubt about it. One of the things I've been really pleased about, like it's been really hard, right? But we've seen state government schemes come and go. Some of them have been complete debacles. When Solar Victoria was first established, it was an absolute debacle. And, the Smart Energy Council actually declared war on the Victorian government over it. Thankfully, it's now a very good program, right? And huge props to the Victorian government and Solar Victoria. But when it was introduced, it was an absolute debacle. The New South Wales scheme, the PDRS scheme, Peak Demand Reduction Scheme, absolute debacle. IPART, the regulator in New South Wales, has just done an absolutely terrible job. They should never have been given that job. So some state governments have done it very badly. Chris Bowen has done a fantastic job, is the truth. He's worked really closely with industry. He's been listening to us. We've met regularly with the department and with the Clean Energy Regulator. And the thing that's been really important is that Chris Bowen has known about the valley of death and has tried to do whatever he can to try to minimise the damage from that. It could have been much, much worse. There's definitely some problems, but really strong effort into trying to minimise those problems.
Yeah, so the PDRS thing in New South Wales, Wayne, we've seen all kinds of criticisms about how long it takes for people to get paid, huge amounts of extra requirements, and installers complaining about photos on top of photos on top of photos, and all kinds of weird and wonderful stuff, and then just not getting paid. So
imagine if they'd actually talked to industry in developing the proposal, Imagine if they'd actually really engaged with industry whilst they were actually implementing it. Imagine if they'd actually taken the time and made sure that there was only a short period of time between the announcement and when it came into force, rather than the crazy time frame that we've had and all the problems that we've experienced.
These are all really, really good reasons for you to just stay right where you are, Wayne, and just to not go anywhere, because I have had the privilege of working alongside Wayne many times over the years on little projects here and there. I actually want to shout out the thing that impressed me the most about you, Wayne. I don't know if you recall, but I don't know if you missed a plane or something happened, but you ended up at my place on one trip, and the kids were young, and you sat down and read my son a bedtime story and got him off to sleep. So I just want to give a big shout out to the bedtime story capability of Wayne Smith. Maybe that's the secret in Canberra.
A man of the people.
I remember it. I remember it well, Nigel. It was great, mate. And thank you for the couch. It was fantastic. It was really good. No, you saved my life on that day. Thank you.
So, of course, Nigel has alluded to the fact that you're leaving the SEC, or you're finishing your tenure at the SEC after how many years? 14 years, is it?
Yeah, it's a bit complicated. I reckon I've probably been working full-time for the Smart Energy Council for about 7 years, but before then I was a consultant. So I was looking back, and it's probably since 2011, I reckon. 2010, 2011 is when I sort of started working with
goodness.
Grimes, and some stories from that time as well. But yeah, it's been a bit of a long haul.
How did you get there? So you were already involved working with government. What was your background before the Smart Energy Council?
Yeah, well, previously I was working up at Parliament House. I was working for a guy called Anthony Albanese, and a guy called
Just some guy.
and a guy called Peter Garrett that you might have heard of as well. And after that, I left Parliament House, and that was quite an experience. And then I set up my own little small consulting firm, just my own little business. And so I was consulting to a bunch of renewable energy companies and organisations. And one of those was, I think, an organisation called the Australian Solar Energy Society, which was headed up by a guy called John Grimes. I did a bit of consulting with them, and that sort of grew over time. Bit of a familiar story, actually. My workload with the Solar Energy Society grew and grew and grew over time. The pay didn't, but the workload did. And then eventually John made me an offer that I couldn't refuse.
And Wayne, why are you going? Are you just exhausted? Have you got something else on the radar?
Going out on a high.
Why are you going? Because I have walked the halls of Parliament with you, and you've been so gracious. When you go to Parliament and you go from office to office to office, from advisor to minister to advisor, you sit in the cafe and you learn how to operate in that enormous, weird world that you live in. It's invaluable to have someone like you there. Why are you going?
Why am I leaving?
What are we going to do, Wayne?
Look, one, I'm not exhausted, right? I'm actually not exhausted at all.
Awesome.
I'm feeling really good about the world. I'm ready for a podcast or two, right? So I'm feeling good about the world. It's a good time in the political cycle to leave. We've just had the federal election, a comprehensive win for federal Labor, very strong result. We've got rid of some of the dinosaurs in our political world, and the other dinosaurs are pretty irrelevant now. So that makes me very happy. 600 billion reasons to celebrate. And I think life is good, right? And so politically, I think it's a good time to move on. There are some fantastic people in the Smart Energy Council who are going to continue on and stepping up. There's some fantastic people around the Smart Energy Council, so I'm not worried about this at all, and I have no plans.
It could almost be a mic drop moment after the Cheaper Home Batteries program was announced, and you know that your fingerprints are all over that. Is that one of your greatest achievements since you've been at the Smart Energy Council?
Yeah, look, I'm really, really happy about it, really proud of it. And I think it is a great achievement. And not as a great achievement for me, it's going to be a great achievement for Australia. I actually think it's going to change the energy grid, and it's going to be far more popular than anyone expects. That's the truth. And so very, very proud of that. And a big shout out to John Grimes, the CEO of the Smart Energy Council, who did an extraordinary job with the Cheaper Home Batteries program. He and Chris Bowen worked very closely together. In the end, this is a government program, right? So Chris Bowen is the architect. Chris Bowen deserves all the credit for it, together with Anthony Albanese as Prime Minister, because federal cabinet had to agree to it. It's a $2.3 billion program. If you think about the federal election campaign, there were very few election commitments, but the $2.3 billion Cheaper Home Batteries program was one of those. So that's a massive win, right? So very, very proud of that, and very proud of the work that we've been doing to get the program as good as possible. Just back to me, I think it's a good time to get a bit of a generational change, to be honest, in the industry. Lots of talent coming through, and I'm feeling really good about that. Luke, if that's an invitation for me to reflect on some successes along the way, happy to do so.
Yes. That's one success you've been part of in conjunction with the government and, of course, John and the SEC.
Yeah.
What are some other notable ones?
Yeah. So look, I do think that the Smart Energy Council, and before that, the Australian Solar Council was the organisation, has got a really strong track record of success. When we campaign, we win. And a real credit to everyone that's been involved in this work. And I don't think, to be brutally honest, we probably gets enough credit for the work that we've done. I think the Smart Energy Council, the Australian Solar Council as it was then, was fundamentally important in saving the renewable energy target and making it happen. So you have to remember, and there'll be some people listening to this call who are new to the industry, don't know this story. It's going back a little ways. But when Tony Abbott was Prime Minister, he wanted to axe the renewable energy target, the small-scale renewable energy scheme that creates STCs and the large-scale renewable energy target, both of those. We campaign really strongly to save the renewable energy target. And by campaigning strongly, I mean multi-million-dollar campaign, 15 community halls, town halls in marginal seats around the country, massive campaigning, which led to a delegation of coalition backbenchers going to Tony Abbott and saying, make it stop. We proved that you cannot attack the solar industry. The solar industry is extraordinarily powerful politically, and no one's tried to damage the industry since. Now, then, in addition to that, we were very keen to save the large-scale renewable energy target as well. Unfortunately, the Clean Energy Council caved in and they actually negotiated a reduction in the renewable energy target. It was extraordinary. The only renewable energy industry body in the world that's ever negotiated a reduction in a renewable energy target. We had the numbers to save it. They caved in. That was really disappointing. We still have the renewable energy target. Now, then, in addition to that, Tony Abbott wanted to axe ARENA, the Renewable Energy Agency. He wanted to axe the Clean Energy Finance Corporation. He wanted to axe, and he did, the Climate Change Authority. And there was legislation put up multiple times to axe those critical agencies. Every single time we made sure that the numbers were there in Parliament to save those critical institutions. And now we have multi-billion-dollar industry as a direct result of that work. So really proud of that work, and huge props to a whole bunch of people, including many people on this call.
Amazing work. And you've left out the New South, for those of listeners who are in New South Wales, left out the New South Wales feed-in tariff, which
Can I tell a
was
story, Nigel?
It was one of the first times we got to work really closely together, and you know, you guys showed me what you were capable of, dragging us around. Me and Jeff Bragg, you know, I think we had suits on from op shops, and you know, you guys dragged us around in New South Wales Parliament House, meeting to meeting to meeting. So we've done state with you, we've done federal with you, but in New South Wales, we turned Barry O'Farrell on his backside in the end and saved that scheme. It was awesome.
Yeah, for all the listeners, let's go back in time to 2011. That's so long ago, right? Solar panels were made out of stone, probably. This is like Flintstones era, right? And me and Nigel Morris and many, many others helped save the industry. So at that time, the feed-in tariff was, get this, 60 cents a kilowatt hour, and the solar feed-in tariff. And Barry O'Farrell had just been elected as the New South Wales Premier. And he wanted to, his very first act as Premier was to decide to retrospectively slash the feed-in tariff from 60 cents a kilowatt hour to 40 cents a kilowatt hour. Retrospectively, right? So people had invested thousands and probably tens of thousands of dollars of their own money in solar that worked out how much money they were going to save.
The mums and dads of Australia.
Mums and dads of New South Wales, absolutely, right? Just normal New South Wales people wanting to save money on their power bills, invested their money, and then Barry O'Farrell comes along and wants to retrospectively change it. And we said, no, that's not going to happen. And so we launched this massive campaign. Nigel, I don't know if you remember Customs House in Sydney. We held a public meeting.
And the whole of Circular Quay, mate. We couldn't fit everyone in.
So many people turn up at Customs House, just ordinary people turned up. We
Thousands.
had to evacuate Customs House.
Yeah.
And we went onto the whole foyer sort of outdoor area into Circular Quay.
Yep.
This massive public rally. And that was just one thing that we did. And Nigel, I don't know if you remember, and I don't know if you were there. So politics is all about numbers, right? Your numbers has to be more than their numbers, your opponent's numbers. That Barry O'Farrell had to change the legislation. He had to have the numbers in Parliament to do that. We had to make sure that he didn't have the numbers in Parliament. And so among other things, one thing that we did, a very famous meeting with the shooters and
fishers. Oh, I remember that one. Oh, that was a beauty.
There's me and John and Nigel and some others.
Yep.
Meeting with the shooters and fishers party. We go into this room, right? Meeting room, and we look around. I'm looking towards the guys from the shooters and fishers party. On the wall is the head of a deer, more than a bit distracting. Behind me, there's probably the head of another deer. There's all these dead animals all the way around the meeting room, and we've somehow got to focus and talk about solar feed-in tariffs. Oh, there was a gun, wasn't there? There's some gun on the wall as well, and hunting equipment and a whole bunch of stuff.
It was weird.
Oh, we had to look after those farmers that had 30 kilowatt dual axis trackers in their paddocks. We had to look after.
Well, they did. You're exactly right. It was
Unlikely bedfellows.
They'd spent
loads
heaps of money.
Heaps of money, mate. All those rural and regional guys had invested heavily, and they were really, really affected by it. And to their credit, with the ear slapping that they got from Wayne, they realised that their constituents needed their support. So we got a win.
And so they backed us and we won. It was the first policy loss of Barrier Fowler. He caved in. And the reason why this is actually phenomenally important then was it meant that no other state government would dare do it. West Australian government tried to do it. I think it lasted less than a day, and they had to back down. And I remember in Queensland, this is going 2015, this is under Campbell Newman, had a productivity commission which recommended retrospectively slashing the feed-in tariff in Queensland. They gave that report to the new government, and I recall that between the time that the productivity commission finished their report and sent it to the minister's office, and by the time it arrived in the minister's office, the minister had already agreed he wasn't going to do it. So that lasted that was less than
negative
half an
time.
hour. I'm saying probably 5 minutes.
That was a good time.
Good win,
it was when we really realised the influence of the solar sector and how much political sway the sector has now, and not because we're big lobbying bullies, but because millions and millions and millions of Australians have invested and they give a shit, and they'll change their vote if you rip them off.
And if you want proof that the solar industry is still powerful, well, $2.3 billion cheaper home batteries program is your proof, right? Incredibly important. Hey, now just quickly going back to the retrospective cuts, the feed-in tariffs, it matters because we're seeing this stuff again, right? Governments and regulators are making decisions without consultation with the industry and absolutely without consultation with the general public. And we need to shine a much, much brighter light on all the decision making around energy. And again, a huge shout out to Chris Bowen for the way in which he actually engages with industry.
I got to say, Wayne, we've been really enjoying being a part of the Smart Energy Council WhatsApp groups and getting all the updates in there. And you've been really, really active in there. And I got to say how much we really appreciate you steering the ship in what can be a bit of a turbulent discussion. So the big focus has been New South Wales. I think briefly touched on it earlier, and it sort of feels like we're just waiting any day now and they're going to give us an update. Can you share with our listeners who maybe aren't in that group the status there?
Yeah, please.
So the Smart Energy Council's got a whole bunch of WhatsApp groups for our different working groups and for senior members. We've got a cheaper home batteries working group. It's got 300 members in it, which is just extraordinary. And we're talking it is the most amazing mechanism for delivering instantaneous news to people. Bit of a challenge to manage it if we do that at all, but nonetheless, extraordinarily useful. New South Wales, depends on what time this recording actually gets published. As it stands late on a Friday night, we don't know. We're still waiting for details from the New South Wales government. We are hoping it's imminent. I would expect that there'll be an announcement next week. So what's that, the week beginning the 9th of June or something like that?
Are we pretty hopeful they're going to say what we'd like them to say?
Look, the truth is their consultation hasn't been great. That's the truth. I'm not sure is the answer. I think it'll be stackable in some form.
Do you think it might be a bit like WA where it sort of combines a bit in that sense?
Yeah, I don't think it'll be the same as what it is now. I think people can probably take that to the bank.
Yeah.
I would expect the peak demand reduction scheme will change in some form. The thing that's really important is that the Cheaper Home Batteries program is the Cheaper Home Batteries program. It's the same program in New South Wales as it is in WA. That's not going to change. The commitment from the government's been really clear. So the question is, what is the New South Wales government going to do? And the jury's still out on that one.
And it's a massive win that it's under the SRES.
Yeah, it's fantastic. It really
Huge.
It means a strong regulatory framework, which is really, really important. But it also means that things can happen quickly. We've got the architecture. We push really strongly for this, the Smart Energy Council. Use the existing architecture. And by the way, people ask sometimes, why can't we just install batteries? Why does it have to be solar and batteries sort of connected together? And the reason for that is because if it was just batteries, then you'd have to change the legislation, and that would take some time. And so making it solar and batteries allows it to happen very quickly. And to be brutally honest, it's been a pretty damn quick turnaround, 1st of July. And I've been really impressed, and we've certainly been pushing really hard for this, been really impressed by the amount of information that the government, the Climate Change Department and the Clean Energy Regulator have been able to publish and provide information to people.
Yeah. They've been pumping it out. I heard an interview with Penny Sharp the other day, New South Wales Minister for Energy, on Giles's podcast, Energy Insiders, which was quite insightful because Penny has made some tough calls around renewables during her tenure, but she sounds like she really gets it. She understands that there's this macro energy system that she has to deal with. She's got to deal with large scale. She's got to deal with small scale. She's got to deal with distributed. She was talking about the challenges of building roads and working with road and water infrastructure to just get wind turbines to sites, for example. So she's really sounds like she's really, really engaged in it, which is great.
Right. Yeah.
But you're suggesting that she's going to play some state politics and try and leverage something out of the budget?
Oh, no, I'd certainly urge the New South Wales government to engage more with the solar and battery storage industry. So do more of that. We had a very good meeting with the Minister Sharp, a couple of weeks ago. It was really good, and we really welcome that relationship. That's really important. And I think Penny Sharp does get it. I think she's passionate about climate action, absolutely committed to it, very supportive of renewable energy. And, the rollout of renewable energy zones in New South Wales is really important. There's been a very recent announcement around that. It's really exciting. There's lots of opportunities in New South Wales. And so I think we're going to see a lot more from the New South Wales government. We're going to see a lot more from Penny Sharp, and I'm really looking forward to that. In terms of the New South Wales peak demand reduction scheme, I think that they're trying to work out what's the best way to match it with the small-scale renewable energy scheme and STCs. They don't want to see free batteries. We don't want to see free batteries.
Sure.
They want to make sure that there's a strong commitment to consumer protection. We want to make sure there's a strong commitment to consumer protection. We think that as I mentioned before, the Clean Energy Regulator has provided a really strong regulatory framework, and I hope that the New South Wales government echoes that. They don't need to reinvent the wheel.
No.
There is a strong regulatory framework there as well. And so just working together to make sure there's that commitment to quality and safety is really important.
Because, Wayne, Penny got it wrong with the PDRS. She wreaked havoc on New South Wales solar businesses, absolute havoc with that delay. Do you think she has taken that on board and won't make the same mistake again?
Yeah, it's fair to say that we have expressed our displeasure. It'll be interesting to watch the announcement from the New South Wales government. It may well be a bit of a reflection on the fact that the current system isn't as good as it could be, that it has taken too long. Let's wait and see. But I think the Commonwealth government, New South Wales government, working closely together with the solar and battery industry, you can get some really good outcomes. And I'm hoping that this is, at the very least, a starting point for all of that.
To get a bit more national, there's still some loud dissenting voices on some of the forums about the fact that this isn't technically legislated yet. We're still waiting for the I's to be dotted and T's to be crossed, as it were. I think there's probably a majority of businesses that are steaming ahead as per Bowen's instructions. But do we have? I know he said in our little snippet that we're moving as quickly as we can. But do we have any insight on that front from what you guys are hearing through the grapevine?
Yeah, no, I think we are moving as quickly as we can. It's absolutely starting on the 1st of July. That's really important. We've been meeting very, very regularly with the Clean Energy Regulator and the department, and also the minister and the minister's office. One of the reasons why we set up that WhatsApp group is it gives us that real-time feedback from industry about the problems, the challenges that we're facing, and a whole bunch of questions. Jess, I'm sure you'll know, whole bunch of questions coming through that WhatsApp group. All those questions are being passed on, like to the department and the clean energy regulator. I think we've got answers to nearly all the key questions. The big outstanding issue right now, as we see here now, is what's the New South Wales government going to do? And hopefully by the time this recording is published, we'll know the answer to that question. There's still probably a little bit of outstanding issues. I know there's genuine concerns about what's going to happen with STC prices. How quickly are people going to get the price recovery for STCs, etc.? I know the rec agents are worried about that, etc. We're talking regularly again to the department. I would expect that we'll probably have a roundtable around these issues in the next week or two.
What are we talking here, Wayne? So we're talking 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. What's going to be the lag?
4 weeks is the 1st of July.
No, we're talking about. So I installed a battery on the 1st of July, and I put in my claim for 93 STCs.
Sure.
How long am I going to wait till I get paid?
Obviously, I can't speak on behalf of the Clean Energy Regulator. I know that they've absolutely increasing their own resources, which is good, and they've got funding for this. I think they're probably looking at a 2 to 3 week turnaround for STCs, which is not too bad, right? It's not too bad, 2 to 3 weeks.
Terrible, but for some businesses, it's hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Understand completely. And look, the important thing for people to know is that they're setting up a whole new system. My understanding is that it's going to be a manual system, probably for the first 2 or 3 months. And that's the real reason for a delay of 2 to 3 weeks or so.
So we're talking fax machines, carrier pigeons.
Carrier pigeons, and going back to the sort of the Flintstones analogy, right? It's basically going to be a little bit like that.
In the early days of all these schemes, I remember hearing stories about people who literally went, I've got a box next to my desk that's just full of rebate applications that we get to them when we get to them. But that's literally how almost all these.
I remember an installer night in WA when Western Power were talking about how they were going to an online digital system from the old paper system, which was literally filling out a form manually and faxing it through. And there was a bit of kickback from some of the older installers saying, this is terrible. I don't want to use an online platform. It's horrendous. I want to keep filling out my bits of paper.
Jess from the TikToks, have you ever actually filled out a paper form? You probably haven't you?
In my life? It's a tricky one. That's a real tricky one, Nigel. I got to say, we've got SA Power Networks here has, I think I can say, the best application platform. It's instant. It's brilliant. I wish that especially our friends over in Vic had a bit of a look-see at what we're doing over here, because it's pretty good.
SA Power Networks do a fantastic job. But look, we're probably looking at a 2 to 3 week turnaround initially. I know that's going to be some challenges. I also know that there's various companies, Bright's a good example of that, that's offering some financing to companies to help deal with some of those issues as well. So that's just worth exploring. But there's going to be some challenges. The other thing I reckon that it's probably worth noting is that we're pushing very strongly, Smart Energy Council, pushing very strongly for the federal government to set up some form of a industry advisory group post 1 July. And the reason for that, as much as anything, is to get real-time feedback from industry, from companies, about how it's going. And so getting that feedback from installers, from retailers, from manufacturers is really important, and getting real-time advice on problems, whether that's supply chain problems or, some practices that are not as good as they should be, STC issues and so forth, and having a mechanism to provide that feedback directly to government to get, hopefully, some pretty quick responses to that is going to be really important. I haven't seen a commitment to that yet, but we'll push for that very, very strongly.
I think that's a great idea, and I want to give a huge shout out to Endeavour Energy and the other DNSPs in New South Wales who have been running information campaigns to engage with industry in the development of the pending backstop mechanism in New South Wales. And the biggest shout out I want to give to them, gift cards. They gave us gift cards. They acknowledged that in this, there's a cost, personally, professionally, time, whatever you want to call it. There is a cost, and they acknowledged that, and they provided a little bit of compensation in the form of a gift card for those people who signed up and attended, which was, I have to say, a very, very refreshing difference, because normally, and if I look back over the last 34 years at how many of these sessions I've done with guys like you, Wayne, the majority of them are not paid. The majority of the activity that's done to defend the industries and to get these regulations correct is all done voluntarily. And big shout out for some gift cards.
Yeah, and I'm really pleased about that. And it's something that we've pushed really hard for. And Nigel and others, the experience with the emergency backstop, particularly in Victoria, another debacle, absolute debacle. And one of the key things here is that we know that the Victorian government's got funding to do this work, emergency backstop. The energy networks were funded to do the work. And then the people who are actually carrying the load, physically, mentally, and financially, the installers, the manufacturers, not paid to do this work, and instead actually losing, millions of dollars.
Yeah, we're in that one for
problems, right?
Yeah, iStore's in that for hundreds of thousands of dollars in getting our products approved across half a dozen different networks and witness testing and all kinds of weird and bizarre stuff. So
the
that
tech
leads
support
me
hours, can't even imagine.
No, and it's got to change.
It's hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's not chump change. It's an enormous amount of work.
The system has to change, right? And so there needs to be funding for solar and battery storage companies to be involved in these processes, and it can't just be profits being taken by others at the expense of the solar and battery industry.
Wayne, we've talked a lot about the history. We've talked a fair bit about what's going on now. You mentioned a industry advisory group, which sounds pretty exciting for the future. Anything else that you foresee on the cards from the Smart Energy Council and the roadmap before you take off?
Yeah, I've got a few weeks left. And I've got a whole bunch of things on my to get done list. The cheaper home batteries program, getting that as good as we can by the 1st of July is certainly one of them. Another one is I'm hoping that Australia will be successful in hosting the COP, the UN Climate Change Conference, in Adelaide, Jess.
Yes.
At the end of next year. At the moment, it's a battle between Australia and Turkey, but there's a climate change conference coming up in Germany, in Bonn, in 2-3 weeks' time. And that may well be the decision point as to which country gets to host it. We're pushing very hard for Australia to host it in partnership with the Pacific.
If you need some support there, Wayne, I'm more than happy to volunteer to go over there and be on the delegation.
That sounds good, mate. I think we might try to take a delegation to Germany at the last minute. And Karl, I appreciate the nomination. It's good to see.
I'm freezing to death, man. It's warm over there this time. Let's be real.
Let me just quickly say, though, if we do host the COP, among other things, it will be, I think from an Australian government perspective and from a Smart Energy Council perspective, it is the most incredible opportunity to celebrate the success of the transition in Australia, the fact that 10 million Australians right now have got solar on their homes, hopefully celebrating the success of the cheaper home batteries program, which is a world-leading program and an opportunity to tell the story about Australia's transition towards 100% renewables, the mistakes that we've made, the opportunities, the successes, and also training and a whole bunch of opportunities to work much more closely with countries throughout the world on that energy transition. There's a lot to learn from the Australian experience. There's a lot to learn from the South Australian experience, the work of SA Power Networks, for example, managing a 100% renewables grid, the opportunity to tell all those stories. So that's going to be really, really exciting.
So our target's like 82% renewables by 2030, Wayne. All of us a little bit detached from how we're actually tracking for that. Are we on track?
Yeah, I reckon we're on track. Look, it's given me lots of challenges ahead, right? Our view is that roughly to get to 82% renewables by 2030, roughly half the job's going to be done with large-scale renewables, solar farms, wind farms, and roughly half the job's going to be done with consumer energy, rooftop solar, backed up with battery storage. It's quite possible now there's some big challenges in rolling out large-scale renewables. There's problems in getting the transmission there. There's problems with some social license issues around community acceptance. We're seeing some governments.
Hold up there, Wayne. We saw that in the news this week. A massive wind farm in Queensland got kiboshed by some locals.
Yeah, and the Queensland government's going backwards, right? They're walking away from a whole bunch of commitments, which is really disappointing. I'm really hoping the Queensland government will change direction, but it does make it hard. And I think so. One of the consequences of that, it wouldn't surprise me if by 2030, consumer energy, rooftop solar, battery storage is maybe 60% of our energy mix, right? So the work that everyone's doing in our industry is phenomenally important.
Yeah, look, critically important. I see even in South Australia, Jess, you had Tesla put their hand up to build a battery recycling plant.
Yes,
and the
on
locals
condemned land that's like super unusable, but there's big protests, and I think that the general sentiment is a lot more anti-Musk than it is anti, like local jobs and
Look, there was
industry and blah blah
lots and
blah.
lots of discussions about that online, and I saw heaps of people say, "Hey, bring it to my town. We can do with those
Totally.
jobs."
It's
So
right
there's
across
heaps
the
of
road from us
support.
too. Yeah. And it's like, I get where people are coming from, like the Musk image is not great. Like I understand that. I understand people not wanting him to make money, but when you look at the project and what they have in mind and things like that, like it's a massive boon for SA continuing to lead the charge.
Look,
So
He lost, what did he lose today? 156 billion?
I personally lost
Really,
$7,000 last night. Nigel.
Whoa!
Just like,
He's selling his stocks,
"You
mate."
Bitches.
He's off Donald's Christmas card list by the looks of it.
Well, at the end of the day, he's turned around and said, "Donald, you're a twit."
Now, Wayne, I'm going to tell you a quick story about when we caught up. So you were in town for a WA Smart Energy
Remember,
Council.
what happens in Perth stays in Perth.
Yeah, exactly. I've got the PG version. I'd attended the Smart Energy Council's summit in WA. I'd spoken there, and it had been quite a big day. So I grabbed my colleague Emmett. We went across to the Windsor Hotel, just snuck away. And I just said, we'll have a quick beer to debrief, and then we'll jump in Ubers, get out of here before anything else happens. So I'm right near the end of my beer, and I saw you coming down the street with your posse around you and entourage. And as soon as I locked eyes with you, I thought, I'm not getting out of this easily. And it was a fun time.
Story.
But as we know, I'm sure it's the same in politics, but certainly in business, it's not all 9 to 5, sometimes outside of hours, building relationship and doing business. That's where it really happens.
Depends if you're talking 5 p.m. or 5 a.m., right?
Oh, all of the above, Jess.
Luke, without naming names like Bryn Folletta, for example, I recall like a 5 a.m. taxi after some conference. And I remember getting out of the taxi at 5 a.m. and realizing I didn't have my phone.
Remember being a relative term, of course,
which I'd left in the taxi.
Oh, no.
And then remembering that I actually needed said mobile phone for the conference and the work that I was supposed to be doing from basically 7 a.m. of the same day and calling around and trying to get help from people whose names I won't mention, like Bryn Folletta, who's saying, please help me find my mobile phone, because there was nothing scarier than me without my mobile phone. It's
I can jump in there, Wayne, and I said you called the wrong guy. You put the wrong bat signal out there for Bryn Folletta. You should have sent it to Luke Beattie. He is an absolute professional when it comes to retrieving a mobile phone that's been left at a nightclub in Munich in the middle of the night.
And that's where I'm going to pull Wayne's card and say what happens in Munich.
Hey, to be fair, Luke, you got that thing back.
Am I allowed to tell the story about the Smart Energy Council delegation to India, where we might have been in Mumbai, and
we've lost Nigel. We've lost Nigel. He's gone.
where I might have left my mobile phone in the taxi in Mumbai. There are 100,000 taxis in Mumbai, and thankfully the amazing team at Smart Energy Council was somehow able to retrieve my phone. I got it back, and the taxi driver got a very, very nice tip. Probably should have given him a much bigger tip because he basically saved my life.
I see a recurring theme here. Now, there's not time for much more, but we're going to go around for last comments and thoughts, and we'll start with you, Jess.
Oh my goodness, I'm going rapid fire. So I want to give a massive shout out. There's a big Shanghai delegation going at the moment. I know my bosses have been sending me lots of beautiful Snapchats from rooftop bars, but I've got to give a massive shout out to the Kennedys from Total Solar Solutions. Their little blog updates have been brilliant and really heartfelt, and I think more people should be watching them because they're really insightful and really genuine. And then my second quick thing is just a report that came out a little while ago that's on global energy trends by Ember. Was talking, it's really interesting read, lots of really great news for global solar and renewable trends in general. But I saw some really cool things for Australia, which has over 7 times the world average of per capita kilowatt hours. And it's so we're sitting at almost 1900 per capita. And the second is UAE at 12 or almost 1300 per capita. So that's incredible. We should be so proud of ourselves, and we should keep it going.
Kilowatt hours a week or kilowatt hours a year?
Oh, good question. I didn't actually. I just sort of it was just a highlight from it's in the report.
No, usually it's kilowatt peak per capita.
That doesn't make sense. It's got to be kilowatt hours a year. Sure.
No, it's kilowatt peak. It's the amount of PV. So it's the total PV divided by the number of roofs.
Is there one of those forums underneath it, Jess, where people can have a stoush and make comments? And throw
see you there, Jensen.
I think there's heaps of really interesting parts of this report. I strongly suggest having a bit of a look-see if you're that way inclined. If you're a data nerd like me,
send me a link, Jess. I love a bit of data. Yeah,
absolutely, mate. And then otherwise, full steam ahead for the battery scheme, guys. I think it's just it's time for us to really look to each other, lean to each other, make sure we're keeping on top of each other's mental health as well. There's a lot of stress with high volume, and we just got to take care of our mates, and we've got a great industry for that, so we got to keep it going.
Thanks, Jess. Over to you, Karl.
Oh, geez, I could really let rip here, but I'll agree with Jess and say that there's plenty of people under a lot of stress, and if they want to take it out on me, it's fine because I really don't give a shit what they think. Just keep sending it, and I'll keep just flipping it off because I don't care. And ultimately, integrity is first, and that means that we need to keep doing the right thing and not selling little old ladies 50 kilowatt hour battery storage systems that they don't need. Lots of people have reached out to me and said, hey, we agree, and we are out there to help people actually save money on their energy bills, and we're using this cheaper home battery schemes to help people save money, not to cost them a small fortune in things that they can't use. So that's great that people have done that, and ultimately thanks to those people.
Thanks, Karl. And Nigel.
Yeah, also I'm going to extend a shout out. So firstly, shout out to everyone in Tasmania who hosted us at SEA last week for SEA Hobart. Fantastic show. Secondly, shout out to a new podcast that we helped create called George, the Tassie Solar Guy, George from Rest Energy.
On you, George.
Yeah, George very generously invited me to come and record his inaugural episode when I was down in Tassie, which was fantastic. And I'm just going to say, I'm going to put it out there that we're on a catamaran with a fridge full of beer and pickled octopus and other condiments, which is a lot better than this podcast. So, it was quite special.
You didn't even call us in, Nigel. What the hell? We're supposed to have a special guest slot and we didn't get a phone call. I'm disappointed.
You didn't get a special guest spot, Karl? We all got a guest spot.
Yeah.
So that was awesome. Helping someone else get another podcast up is just great. And George and his team are really trying really, really hard. Cost a lot in beer, but we got there in the end. And look, can't wait to see everyone in Victoria next week. I'm coming down to the coldest part of the country to go around and do a bunch of road shows, visit a bunch of people, go to a whole bunch of cold places. Can't wait.
And I do want a little bit more word count for you because you've worked closely with Wayne longer than all of us. So any words for Wayne?
Oh, yeah. Look, here's the drum. This industry has something like 35,000 people if you count all the people like Wayne, right? Hiding in the background, doesn't like the limelight, but beavering away, doing important things. And it's the Wayne Smiths of this world that make a difference in this industry, understanding what matters, understanding what's going to make a really big impact, understanding what the critical issues are at the right time of the day. Wayne, you have taught me so much about understanding how to, just the tiniest bit about how to deal with politics. You have been an invaluable quiet achiever in the background, but your achievements are huge. They are endearing. They are long-winded. It has been an honor and a pleasure, and I really hope you don't leave our industry because you have made a massive impact.
Do you need a tissue, Nigel?
Look, he read my son a bedtime story at the end. All of
big
this.
Shout out to Wayne. Big shout out to Wayne.
And he curls up on the couch and reads a bedtime story. What kind of a good human is that?
Yeah.
True. So
we're very lucky.
Thanks for your service, Wayne, to the industry, and thanks for coming on the podcast. Do you have any last comments?
No, look, thank you so much. Bit over the top, but greatly appreciated, mate. Really seriously appreciated. Yeah, look, just to echo what everyone else said, actually, if there's a message that I've got for everyone, it's focus on quality, a focus on safety, focus on integrity. Get it right, look after your customers and look after Australians, and don't forget how powerful the solar and battery storage industry is in Australia. And it's been an absolute pleasure to be on this podcast. Thanks all.
Thanks, Wayne. Hope to catch up soon. And thanks to our listeners. Please remember to like, subscribe and share, and we'll catch you next time.